Hi, my name is Martin, and today I will show you the current state of the RPG tools which I'm currently working on. Recently I was working on UI features mostly, so this will be the main focus of this video. In the last video I showed you how to do the core data setup. Today I will just do that very quick, because as I said, the main focus will be UI. So we will add two stats, strength and defense. Then we will create a base experience curve. So you define how many experience points you need for each level. We will create a very simple damage type. For now, let's just use the strength and multiply it by 2. And for character classes, we should at first create some characters. I just bought a new laptop, so I will create 2 characters from scratch, and that's why you see just a very short list. Currently I need to re-download everything here. So we will create the orc male and female characters in this tutorial, and we can give them, let's choose the paper doll animation and pause it. We will give the orc only the core equipment, and the rest can be done using items. So, okay, for this tutorial I will just don't give the character any equipment, and we will handle everything with items. So we can just save the character as it is without any equipment. What I changed recently is that the default folders will use your project folder, which is called default project, and inside that there are some default folders like data characters, where you should store every character. So let's save that as orc male, and then we will do the same for the orc female. Just save as. Now we can jump back to the data editor and to the character class, and we will create 2 classes, one for the orc male, one for the orc female. And here you can pick the character. I still need to fix that bug that disappear multiple times, but you can pick anyone on this list. And we will do the same for the female. We can configure the stats. So let's give them some hit points. Experience and level can be ignored. Movement speed is pixels per second, so let's choose 80. Give them some strength, maybe 20, and defense. I will just pick 10. And the same for the female. Let's make it faster and stronger, maybe less defense. Just for testing, of course, it doesn't make much sense to use these as classes, these are just examples. So the next step would be to give them items, but for that we at first need to define some items. I just create the resource, but this isn't needed currently. And one thing that is important, you need to save here, which saves everything here in different files. but currently when you close the tool there is no dialog which asks you to save anything, so please do that often. There is an autosave feature, but I need to look into that to make sure that everything is saved also using the autosave feature. Okay, we will create some item slots. Let's use one for the main hand and one for the offhand, one for the body, one for legs. That should be it for now. For the equipment slots, it will be similar. We will use the same mapping. In most of the cases it's a one-to-one relation, so one equipment slot is bound to exactly one item slot. But there are some cases where you have multiple times the same equipment type. Like you can have multiple rings, so you would have one ring item type but multiple ring equipment slots. So that's the main use case for that. Otherwise it would be enough to have just a single list. So let's do this quickly, just a one-to-one relation. Okay, let's save this, and now we will create some items. So I create the sort, and I will assign the icon. It will automatically launch the dialog browser with the icon folder I have chosen when the tool started. So let's choose a proper icon. Yeah, let's just pick this one. And then for the type we choose weapon. Then we have to choose the slot, which is main hand. And now we need to choose the model. Now we enter orc in the filter, and then the male sword should appear, hopefully. Yes, there it is. And the damage type. Okay, I need to enter a name here. I will just call it, or let's call it melee. So that should be it. And now we will do the same for the female sword. Choose an image. And select weapon type, main hand slot. The filter is still the same as before, which is fine. And the damage type melee. So that's it for the two weapons. Now we will create an armor item. So female armor. Of course the names are quite bad, but just as an example. Let's choose an icon, and in this case the type is equipment, where you need to choose the slot, which is body in this case, and the model, which is female orc top. should be it, hopefully. We can check that in the character editor. So now create the male armor. Let's choose anything. Also choose equipment and body. And for the model, the male top. So I don't want to bore you too much, so that should be it for now. We can extend it afterwards. So now we will jump to the more interesting part, hopefully, the UI editor. When you select it for the first time, it asks you for a folder which contains all the UI images you want to use. I purchased a package a while ago which contains some RPG UI elements, and I just used the PNG folder as the root folder, so it will store relative paths to all the files I will choose there. So that's the new UI editor. And now we will create an HUD. So what I did already was to export background images from the asset pack, one for the inventory and one for the equipment. And now I can just create an element. Here I need to choose the type in the toolbox. In this case I want to create a panel. A panel can have sub-widgets, which in this case are the equipment slots. So I will choose that and just place it somewhere. Now you can see it was added here, and you can enter a name, which I will do in this case. We will need that later. So and now here you will see a new feature which is called Game Widget, where you can choose the function this widget has. In this case, the panel itself doesn't have a function, but now we will create sub-elements of that. For that, it's important that you still have the equipment panel selected, because when you create a new element, it will create a child of that. So now we will create equipment slots. For that, we will choose the type button and choose an image. The image will be replaced with the item image, so it's mostly a placeholder in this case. I will just place it here. Important is that there is a snapping feature which is turned on by default and set to 8 pixels, but you can turn it off or change the snapping size. So now I created a button, and now when you go to Game Widget, you can see that because it's a button, you can choose which kind of function this button should have. By default it has no action, but in our case we want this button to represent an equipment slot. So I will choose equipment slot, and then I can just say which equipment slot it is. And in this case I want this to be the body slot. And we should remove the text, because there should only be an image which will be displayed. And that's it already regarding the equipment slot. So this should work already. It should display the equipment slot in the game, and you should also be able to unequip it via right click. So we will now do the same for the next slot. There is a feature called duplicate, which you can execute via edit duplicate or Control D. That's an easy way to clone widgets. But I still need to implement a way to move existing widgets. Currently you can only move widgets when you place them, but afterwards you need to enter the coordinates, which is a bit annoying, of course. I will implement that in the future. For now, I will do that like that. But of course, I will implement this feature in the future. So in this case, since I duplicated it, it already has the correct configuration besides the equipment slot. In this case, this should be the leg. And now I will create a new item slot, place it here. And another one here. One feature I forgot to mention is when you hold Shift, you can place multiple widgets. So that would be a bit more efficient. So I should turn off the snapping here. This is not helping in this case. So that's it. Remove the text for both and set the game widget tab to equipment slot, and one is for the main hand and the other one is for the offhand, and should also remove the text. So now we should save it. Yeah, by default it will create a UI folder in your project, and I will also create a subfolder called menus and just call it HUD. Okay, so now what we also need is an inventory. For that I also extracted one from the asset pack, which looks like that. I just noticed I didn't select the correct parent. In this case I want to add it here. Let's pick a good name, inventory in this case. And for the inventory there are two ways how you can do it. One way is to add one button for every slot, which is of course quite annoying to do, but you can do it. I will just show you how it would look like and delete it afterwards. So it's almost the same as before. You can place the inventory button here, and then you choose the function inventory slot, and then you need to choose the correct slot index. So it should be 0, 1, 2, and so forth. But since this is too annoying, I created special logic for that. So I will just hit Ctrl Z to undo my button creation and select the panel. And for a panel you can choose the type inventory grid, and here you can define how your grid should look like. So you have a size X and Y, which is the number of slots. So in this case 5 slots, size X, and size Y is 6. Then you have an offset in pixels when the first slot should start. For that you can check it in GIMP, which I currently don't have opened, but we will see it later. Let's choose something like 60/40, and you have an item width and item height, and padding X and padding y. So padding is the distance between two slots which is added on top of the item width and height. So that should be it, hopefully. One thing for the data editor, we now have our character classes, but they don't have any items. But we can change that quickly. We can just add some items here. So in this case we have the male, and he should get the male sword and the male armor, and this can be deleted. And the female orc gets 2 items also. Female sword and female armor. So let's save these. Now you can jump to level editor. I will just pick a grass tile here and right click to fill it. Let's save this level. We don't need to do that, but it doesn't hurt. And now you can go to Tools Play. There is a new option called Full Screen, which will launch the game in full screen mode. Since I'm afraid that my screen capturing won't work with that, I will turn it off. Okay, and one feature I want to show you before I do that is the new feature called UI states. So a UI state is a state like the hero creation or the in-game state or the death state when you just died. And you can define one interface file which is shown in this case. So I will just create an in-game state and select the HUD which is displayed in this case, and then you can define if the game should be shown when you are in the state. So of course when you are in game we should show the game, and we should not block game controls. But for example for the hero creation we would turn off show game, and we should also block game controls, but this flag's only needed when show game is true. So we just define one state for now. We will save. You don't need to save in this case if you want to test anything in the editor, but if the tool crashes or something like that, it's better to do it. So the full screen is a new option, but now you also have a new option where you can define the interface state you want to use as a start. So I will pick in-game, then it should hopefully display the HUD. And if you configure the character classes, it will also automatically select the first class for your character. Oh, it worked as it should. Yeah, that's great. So unexpected. So now, as you can see, you have the character we configured. So that's the male character. You have the equipment we configured, and when you right click on it, you see it in the inventory. The only issue is that the X offset is totally wrong. You can now press escape to leave the play mode and go back to the UI editor and set it to 40 or something like that. I need to implement a preview for that or something like that, but for now that's the best way to test it. Okay, even this, let's say 30. Yeah, ideally you should check that in GIMP, but for this tutorial this should be good enough now. Yeah. So now you can, by a right click, you can unequip items and you directly see how it looks in the game, and you can also equip it again via right click. Currently the rendering order is the order in which you equip the items, I think, but for sure I will need to work on that. So currently rendering order is a topic which is not solved yet for the equipment part. Now press escape again to leave it. So since you don't want to see the inventory and the equipment all the time, we want to have buttons to toggle the visibility of these. So for that we will select the main panel again and create a button. So this is the button to toggle the inventory, and now I will show you how that works. In this case I will just choose button for the game widget, and for buttons you can choose the action you want to execute when you click on it. So in our case we just want to toggle the visibility of a widget in our UI. In this case I want to toggle the visibility of the inventory widget. So you need to enter the name, in this case inventory. I will implement a combo box for that later on. So that was the first one, and the second one for the equipment. And here we do the same, we choose the widget type button and toggle visibility, but in this case the equipment screen should be toggled. So toggle means if it's invisible it will be set to visible, and if it's visible it will be set to invisible. And now we can set both to invisible by default, so the inventory and the equipment. And I forgot to reset the text of my button. So let's save that, go to the level editor and press F5 to play again. So now you can see you have the two buttons. There is a bug that the hovered icon is not the same as the normal one, but I will look into that. And now when you click on it you can toggle the visibility of both UI elements. Yeah, that's already the most important part of it. Now I will show you how we can create a hero creation screen. So let's create a second state and call it hero creation. And we still need to create the interface file, so I will choose it afterwards. And during the hero creation we don't want to show the game. And now I will go back to the UI editor and create a new screen and save it. So I just hit Ctrl S to save it, call it hero creation. And for that, so you want to choose your class, but let's choose a proper background first. So it won't be pretty in this case because I didn't prepare anything. is made for that, but I will show you how you can do it. So I will just create a panel, use this picture, and then you can drag it as big as you like. Now I will create a label. If you don't want any image, you can also pick none here, but a background image for the label is not a bad idea, so let's use this one. Okay, for some reason my keyboard doesn't work anymore. I will save and relaunch. Hi again, sorry, I had problems with the capturing tool, so it stopped recording at the end of the last video. So I will just show you again how to do a separate screen like the hero creation. At the end of the last video we created a new screen, the hero creation, and we created a label. So we will continue with that. So here you have the label, and now I can enter the text. I can change the text size. And now I will add a combo box, which lets you select the class. And for that I need to expand the game widget node, and here I can choose character class selector, which in the game will automatically display all the classes, and when you select it, it will directly apply to the character. So now we want to see the stats directly of the character. For that you need to choose the type list view, and then you can drag it here like that. We don't have many stats, so we can use a small list. Now what we also want to have is a picture of our character. For that, at first we will have a background image. Maybe put it here on the right. So that's the background image. And now we will create an image which should in the game be the image of the character. So we can use any placeholder image here. And then for pictures you can choose the type portrait, which will automatically display the portrait of your character, and it will also handle changes automatically. So when you, for example, when you change the character class, it will be updated, and also when you change the equipment. So and now you need a way to change the UI state. So when you start in the hero creation state, you need to change the state to the game state. For that we will create a button. Let's just use a very simple one like that. Okay. And for a button you can choose the type button, which is a generic widget which lets you execute some UI actions. Currently there are only two. One was toggle visibility, which we used in the last video to show and hide the equipment and inventory UI. But this time we want to change the interface state. So we choose set user interface state, and then we can choose the target state, which in this case should be in-game. But for example, if you want to have a more complex hero creation with several steps, you can have multiple states, so hero creation 1, 2, 3 for example, and then you could let the OK button move to the next state like hero creation 2. You could also implement back and forth buttons so you can easily switch between all the states. But in our case it's simple, we just want to switch to the in-game state. So that's it regarding the hero creation menu. Now we need to go back to the data editor, and here we already created the hero creation state, but we need to tell it which file to use. So we use the hero creation file. We don't want to show the game, and we don't need to block game control since we don't show the game anyway. And now if everything works, we should be able to test it. So now you can choose the interface state. So we can choose in-game or hero creation. When we choose hero creation, yeah, you can see the classes here. But the stat list does work currently. But the OK button works. So okay, the stat list does work. So I did something wrong here, I guess. Let's check that. We go back to the list view. Yeah, I didn't choose the widget type. It's called stat view. So you need to create a list view, and then in the game widget category you choose the type stat view. And this will make sure that it will display all the stats of the character. So now you can see proper stats and values. You can switch the class, and you can jump to the in-game menu. So that's it for this tutorial. Thanks for listening. Bye.